that the higher you get, the bigger you get, the more challenging it is, and more the small decisions make a big difference overall.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the program. Dustin Harris hanging out in the podcast chair. I want to tell you an analogy, but first I want to pause and remind you that we're sponsored by OREP Insurance. OREP, of course, is my E&O of choice. OREP.org to find out more. And TrueTrax. TrueTrax is helping to support your adjustments as an appraiser. And folks, you need that support. TrueTrax, you can find out more by going to truefootage.tech. Folks, if you told me 3 years ago that I would own a business that does goat yoga, I would have laughed in your face, and I'm still kind of thinking, pinching myself, really? Dustin, you own a business that does goat yoga? And the answer is gulp, yes. Over the last week, folks, we put up our goat yoga dome. It's a geodesic dome. And I think there's some analogies to business in general. So stick with me here. So I went up to Montana. Coram, Montana is where Goats of Glacier are. Now, we wanted to do goat yoga last year. Okay, let's pause for a second. Back up. What is goat yoga? Well, it's probably 10% yoga and 90% Instagram pictures. Okay. It is yoga, literally yoga with goats. Imagine downward dog with a baby goat kid on your back, literally. Okay, this is what goat yoga is all about. It's supposed to be therapeutic. It's supposed to be fun. It's probably not supposed to be yoga, but nonetheless, it brings people in the gate, if you know what I mean. We did not do this last year, even though it is a growing trend. Look it up. Trust me, folks. This is not something I made up, nor could I have. It's a growing trend out there, but we wanted to do it last year, and we did not. I think I've talked about it on this microphone before. We did not get our goat yoga dome built because we didn't get the goat yoga dome delivered. This year is different. This year we got the materials. They were delivered a couple of weeks ago. I traveled up. It's about an 7 to 8 hour one-way trip from my home to the farm. Went up there, spent 3 days building a goat yoga dome, came back for a couple of days to do some appraisal inspections and record some podcasts and do some other things. I'm going to be headed back up there again tomorrow with our small mini Highland cow, brand new mini Highland cow. It's about 2 feet tall. I know, crazy. But we spent 3 days over the last week building a goat yoga dome. This is a 36-foot dome on a concrete pad built of galvanized steel. Think steel struts about 3 to 4 feet long that basically bolt together in triangles. And you start with the first row and you work on the second row and the third all the way up to the top. And I think there were 8 rows, 36 feet across, about 20 feet tall. My son in a bucket, one of those things you can move around with the different switches. And myself and my son's brother-in-law on the scaffolding that are basically putting these things together. Folks, I will tell you this. We had a lot of hope the first day. We put together about a third of the dome in about 3 hours, so about an hour per row. Okay, pretty easy to do. We thought, this is easy. We're going to be done tomorrow. As you get higher in this building process, you find out a couple of things. First of all, you find out keep the bolts loose. Now, they say that in the instructions, and we did, but we didn't realize how loose you have to keep them. Because as you get higher and higher, it becomes harder and harder to manipulate these metal struts. Number 2, as you get higher and higher, it becomes more and more difficult to maneuver. Okay, so instead of being on the ground and walking around, 3 of you, and maybe climbing up on ladders and step stools and different things, you're literally 20 feet in the air on scaffolding, and every single bolt takes movement and takes repositioning and moving the equipment and unhooking and rehooking your safety lines and all of this stuff, right? And it took a lot long. Oh, by the way, it rained the second day. That was fun. Shivering on the top of a 20-foot scaffolding because it was about 42 degrees and pouring rain, and I was soaked through. Okay, fun, right? Now, but I'll tell you what, we got it done. It looks great. It looks wonderful. I feel great about everything, right? Wonderful, wonderful, fun, wonderful. Now, here's the point. I think there were a lot of really good business lessons learned through that process, and I want to share a couple of them with you. First, I want to pause and remind you to take a look at your E&O insurance. Folks, who do you have E&O through? If it is not OREP insurance, it needs to be. You need to cancel the old service. Trust me on this. I've been with OREP for many years. They have your back. They support you where others don't. The benefits are incredible, and all of that for a reduced price. Through OREP, orep.org. That's OREP.org. TrueTrax is what many appraisers are using to support their adjustments, and you should be as well. If it's in your area, you need to be using it. TrueTrax will help you to support the adjustments that you're making, and you need support for that. You need them in the work file. You need to be able to answer those questions. Where did you get that $15,000 per acre adjustment? You need to be able to answer that, and TrueTrax can help you to do it. Find out more by going to truefootage.tech. Find out more about TrueTrax by going to truefootage.tech. All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Talking about building a goat yoga dome, geodesic dome in Coram, Montana by Glacier National Park. It was quite an experience. We got it done in the 3 days that we had allotted, but barely. Just came in just under the radar. Couple lessons learned. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, I learned to keep the struts, the bolts and the nuts a little bit loose. You got to have enough that it doesn't move on its own, but enough that you can move it manually. Okay. And that becomes important as you get higher and higher because that space gets tighter and tighter. As you can imagine, the dome, you got a lot more space on the bottom than you do on the top. And as a consequence, there's less flexibility. In fact, there was one time that we actually had to buy a bigger bolt because we literally could not take all of the struts and put them together properly. We had to get instead of a 4-inch bolt, we had to get an 8-inch bolt that would allow us to be able to angle it just right so that we could get all those struts together and put it together. So if you look closely, if you ever go to Coram, Montana, and you go to Goats of Glacier and you do goat yoga, I want you to look up and you'll see one bolt that's a little bit longer than all of the others. Folks, what does that mean for you and I in business? Well, I had an opportunity to do some coaching this morning with a young lady who I've been coaching for many, many years. She runs a very successful appraisal business. And as she becomes bigger and bigger, the problems become more and more intense. Okay. Now, what's the analogy? As we got higher and higher in this goat dome building process, can't believe I'm building a goat yoga dome. It became more and more difficult to. Everything was accentuated. Let's put it that way. Every way in which things were twisted and turned and tightened and not tightened just became more and more difficult to manage. Folks, principles are the same. Doesn't matter if you are a 1-person appraisal office or if you are a 10-person appraisal office, right? The principles are the same. The implementation might be slightly different and is slightly different. There's a reason that when I left True Footage that I did not open up, and I do believe that I could have made the choice and probably within 6 months had another $1 million appraisal business. I do believe that's possible. I had the systems, I had the principles, I had a lot of the same people I could have got back together. There's a lot of reasons I didn't do it. But one of the biggest is because of this principle, that the higher you get, the bigger you get, the more challenging it is, and more the small decisions make a big difference overall. Okay. The other thing I learned about in this goat building business is that there was a blueprint. Now, it was difficult to understand. If you look at the blueprint, when I first looked at it, I literally looked at it and go, "Are you kidding me?" There's like 8 different colors here. Every single strut. You would think that in a dome like this, the symmetrical dome like this, that every strut would be the same size. Oh no, there was like 16 different sizes of struts. And you literally have to make sure that every single one of them is in the right order. Otherwise, you get to the top and you're screwed. So not only were we putting him in the right order, putting him on the right order, we always checked and said, okay, let's verify that last bolt. A, C, J, I. Okay, we got it. Let's move on to the next one. Because if you miss one, folks, it makes all the difference in the world. You might have to end up putting a larger bolt. No, that's not the reason why. The bottom line is, folks, there was a blueprint. Do you have a blueprint for your business? I'm guessing that most of you don't, because we weren't taught that. As an appraiser coach, folks, I would love to coach with you and help you with those things. If you are in need of moving your business to the next level, okay, and I'm not necessarily talking about the $1 million level, though I can help you do that as well, but just to the point that you've got more time and making more money, that's what I do. That's what I did this morning with this wonderful person. That's what I would love to do with you. I promise not to talk about goats or yoga or anything of that nature. Reach out to me, TheAppraiserCoach.com. Thank you for joining me today, folks, and go create some value.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit TheAppraiserCoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.